Hi everyone, Wasim Parkar over here. It's August 1st, so I thought it'd be a good time to check in as it is. I think we are on the verge of the American hardcourt season starting in full flow with the Washington 500 already underway, Montreal next week, Cincinnati the week after, and then, of course, the final Grand Slam of the year, US Open 2017, kicks off in the last week of August. However, before the prelude, I thought I'd provide some retrospect on the year gone by. And really, the most interesting stories have been the sheer unpredictability in the women's side, with, of course, Serena Williams missing since the Australian Open due to her pregnancy. And as a result, we saw two, well, to be fair, one unexpected champion in Yelena Ostapenko at Roland Garros, and Garbiñe Muguruza at Wimbledon was probably a bit more of an expected thing, considering, of course, Garbiñe won at Roland Garros last year and was a finalist at Wimbledon to Serena Williams 2 years ago. However, it's fair to say, looking at it from an all-encompassing perspective, the real stories have been on the men's side, and none more so than the renaissance of Roger Federer, who's won two Grand Slams remarkably in 2017 after last winning one in 2012. I don't think anyone could have seen this coming. Of course, in the intervening years, Federer has made three Grand Slam finals, and even in 2016, which was probably a year in which his physical condition was at his limits, he managed to make two Grand Slam semifinals, and arguably should really have beaten Milos Raonic in last year's Wimbledon semifinal. But after a 6 months break, he has come reinvigorated, rejuvenated, playing some of the best tennis. Some may even say even better than when he was at his peak. I would, of course, hold my verdict on that. After all, we live in an age where we need to make instant pronouncements. I still remember a lot of Federer's glory years, and all I will say is that he's upholding to that standard. To say that he's playing even better than them is a bit disingenuous to the great man, in my honest opinion. So, what are some of the reasons that Federer's got this fountain of youth in 2017? I think, other than being physically fit, the biggest thing is I think Roger Federer has had a mental recharge. His tactics now are very aggressive and very clear. Even the backhand, of course, the backhand slice is still a very good tactical weapon, but he's hitting through the backhand much more often, and he's not hesitating to shorten out points. I think for a long time against the likes of Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic, not so much Andy Murray, who Federer's always had the edge over, but with the other two, Djokovic and Nadal, I think Federer has let pressure get to him. Mentally hasn't been up to it, so he's always been a bit risk averse, not going for winners when he should have, playing safe shots and so on, hoping his opponents would make mistakes. But this year, even against the best players, that's why he even has a 3-0 record against Nadal. He's been going for his shots, and he's not been hesitant in his play. I also think it's important to note that I thought that this year's Australian Open saw some of the fastest courts we'd seen in Melbourne, and that ensured that Federer could play his natural game much more easier. And then at Wimbledon and in grass, he is the undisputed king of that surface. And when you factor in that none of Nadal, Djokovic, or Murray were even in the final four, I think it made things easier for Federer. That being said, he still had some tricky opponents like Thomas Berdych and Marin Cilic, but still, Federer's class and quality rode through. I do think this is actually sustainable as long as Federer stays true to his instincts, plays an attacking game. I think he is the odds-on favorite for the U.S. Open as well, because if anything, the U.S. Open for the last 10 years or so has had the fastest courts, even faster than Wimbledon. So I see no reason why Federer can't repeat his success, other than the fact that Rafael Nadal has also had a great year. He had an unblemished clay court season, and in the wake of Federer doing so many great things, we've kind of forgotten that Nadal was actually the finalist at the Australian Open, finalist in Miami, and even his loss at Wimbledon to Gilles Muller was really a loss against an inspired opponent. It's not like Nadal didn't play well. He showed his trademark fight, came from 2 sets down, took it to the fifth set, but he was just playing an inspired opponent who played that 1% better than he did. So I wouldn't say that Nadal would have many grievances from his Wimbledon performance as well. So overall, a lot of good things for Nadal and Federer, and clearly, it's now the stage has been set for them both to fight to become world number one at the year, because neither Novak Djokovic and Andy Murray in the picture whatsoever. Now, we'll get to see Federer next, most likely in Cincinnati. Nadal is probably going to play both in Montreal and Cincinnati, and then, of course, the US Open. So, certainly something to keep an eye out on over there. Who are the other challengers? Well, we now know that Novak Djokovic is not going to play again for the rest of the year. And, of course, the tendency sometimes is to place a certain set of circumstances for one sporting entity and apply it with a broad brush across all. So I'm hesitant to say that Djokovic is going to come back next year and look refreshed and play as well as Federer has played this year. Each player has his own system of how they recover. There are whole different sets of mental challenges and physical challenges. So it's hard to say, but you know what? Djokovic did look a little burnt out. So I'm inclined to say that this period of rest and recuperation will aid him. Whether he will come back and win two Grand Slams next year, like Federer has won this year, that's another debate altogether. Andy Murray is another person who I think who has not looked physically fit this year whatsoever. I think he's paying the price for playing such a heavy schedule last year. After winning Wimbledon, he went to Rio, won the Olympics over there, and then he played pretty much every tournament in the indoor season with the aim of getting to world number one. And he played a lot of 250 and 500 level tournaments too, not just Masters series, and I think that's caught up to him, and he just hasn't looked fit to me at any point of the year, and it would be a major surprise to me if he was in peak physical condition coming to the US Open. So outside of Federer and Nadal, who are the major threats in the men's game in this American summer? Well, you obviously can't rule out Stan Wawrinka, the reigning US Open champion. Now, it's easy to look at Wimbledon and think Wawrinka had a disappointing result over there, losing in the first round, but I don't think grass is a natural surface for Wawrinka to get accustomed to. The big backswing that he needs on both the backhand and forehand is not something that's conducive to grass, and hence, whenever he's come across better grass court players, he has been susceptible. For example, last year at Wimbledon, he lost to Juan Martín del Potro. The year before that, he lost to Richard Gasquet. These kind of results at Wimbledon this year against Daniil Medvedev, who is a big serving, strong grass court player, to me, it's not as much of an upset as was made out. So, also, you can't read too much into Wawrinka's performances in tournaments leading up to Grand Slams. He is the Grand Slam player. This is a player who reached the semifinals in Australia and the finals at Roland Garros. He has a Grand Slam pedigree, and I think he likes playing at Flushing Meadows. He enjoys playing at the US Open, so he will be a threat for sure. Some people are talking about the youngsters. Now, I'm very interested to see how both Dominic Thiem and Alexander Zverev cope with the expectations at the US Open. I thought both Thiem and Zverev should maybe have had a bit more of a run at Wimbledon. Both of them lost in the round of 16, probably showing a little bit of their inexperience because they had the game to beat the opponents who vanquished them, Milos Raonic and Thomas Berdych. But I think a little bit of composure, a little bit of inexperience caught up to them. What I am interested to see is how they deal with those expectations at the US Open. And I'd go as far as to say I think it's really important that both of them at least make the quarterfinals because, we look at the contemporaries for Federer and Nadal, the likes of Berdych, Tsonga, Gasquet. They spend their whole careers looking promising, looking like potential Grand Slam champions, and they didn't cut the muster. Then we look at the generation after, when they were young, Milos Raonic, Kei Nishikori, these guys, Marin Cilic, who of course has won a Grand Slam and reached the Wimbledon final, so probably can't be too harsh on him. But even they got into a losing habit against the likes of Federer. So it's very important to break through as early as possible in your career. Wawrinka, of course, being a notable exception, but not everyone has that natural power that Wawrinka has. So I think it's important that Zverev and Thiem make a sustained long run in this American summer, so that we can genuinely start believing that they are going to be Grand Slam champions in the future. So that's my take on the men's side. It's going to be an interesting summer. I'll probably be next with you guys on a daily basis during the US Open, like I did last year. It works out well for us here on the Eastern Standard Time Zone. So it's a Grand Slam that I can follow very easily. Maybe, I can't promise you, maybe I'll give you some pieces on Montreal and Cincinnati. Provided a lot of the top players play. We're beginning to see now a theme where a lot of big players are skipping tournaments between Grand Slams, even Master Series and 500 level tournaments. For example, at Washington, the highest ranked player is Kei Nishikori, which is a bit of a shame because I do remember the time when the likes of Pete Sampras, Stefan Edberg, Agassi, Becker, Ivanisevic used to play regularly in tournaments like Washington. I'll be back with you once the US Open kicks off 2017. We'll see who's going to come out on top. Is it going to be Federer? Is it going to be Nadal, Wawrinka, or is it going to be a complete outsider? What I can promise you is that it's bound to be a fascinating story to follow. This is Wasim Parkar signing out. I'll be back with you soon.